Have you wanted to try reading the 10-book series of Malazan, The Fallen, but you're not sure if you can handle it because you've heard it's confusing, hard to read for seasoned fantasy readers? Here's some books you can try first. If you can read these, you can probably read Malazan. I'm sure you've heard it, and I've said it before on my channel. Malazan is a confusing series. It's hard to read. It's for people who are seasoned in fantasy, who are comfortable being confused, not knowing what's going on, and also comfortable waiting books upon books upon books before getting answers to questions that you have. Well, if you can read these books I have in front of me, then you should probably give Malazan a shot. I think you can handle it. First up on the block is going to be the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, the 5th season, the Oblivious Gate, and the Stone Sky. If you can read this series and remain interested, follow along, catch the points that come up in later books, make all those connections, you can probably read Malazan. I'm sure you have seen this series floating around TikTok. If you haven't, N.K. Jemisin is a fantastic fantasy writer who is known for writing fantasy series that are for more seasoned and advanced fantasy readers who are more comfortable being patient and putting connections together through multiple books. The 5th season in itself is a really hard book for a lot of people to get through. First of all, the writing style is a little different from what people are generally used to in fantasy, and it can take some time to get over the tense that this is written in, or the person that this is written in. It is very, very good though. I loved all 3 of these books. I tore through them 2 years ago, and actually I think I'm almost due for a reread on these. I feel like even now that I've read even more fantasy under my belt, that it'll be even more poignant and I'll connect even more. These books are definitely for a higher level fantasy reader. So if you can read these books generally pretty comfortably, you can read Malazan. Another book that I always mention for higher and more seasoned fantasy readers is The Spear Cuts Through Water. I really feel like this book can be very confusing in the way that it's written. You have to really turn your brain on, you have to really pay attention, and you have to really absorb what you're reading in order to follow along with this story. But if you can read this book, I really feel like you can read Malazan the Fallen series. It is very much one of those series that you have to put a lot of patience and attention on in order to capture everything that you need to retain in order to put things together through multiple books. This is a standalone, this is not multiple books, but the reason I feel like this is a book, if you can read it, you can read Malazan, is definitely for the patience and the aspect of having to really pay attention to what you're reading and to make connections. And I feel like this is a really great example of that. Up next is Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and Spider King, Moon Witch. There is a 3rd book. I don't know if it's out or not yet, but I haven't gotten around to it. But this is the Dark Star trilogy by Marlon James. This book is written in a very weird, prose. It's a little difficult to follow along. You have to really, really focus. You have to pay attention. It really encompasses putting things together across multiple books, as well as just kind of holding information in your head until that Easter egg presents itself and you make that connection and you're like, wow, that's what that means. It's very, very much like how Malazan is, where you have to remember something from the 1st book only to be like, oh my god, in the 3rd book when you get the final answer and reveal for it. I really, really enjoyed this series. I didn't enjoy this book as much as this book, but it was really, really interesting to follow these characters along, and I feel like Malazan is the same way.